Halo Infinite's multiplayer has been out for over a month now and has given the opportunity to become pretty familiar with its various different maps. Some are immediate hits while others go rather unnoticed. However, there is one map in particular that seems to hit the community pretty differently based on who you ask. Launch Site is a medium-sized asymmetric map intended for 4 vs 4 or free-for-all combat game modes. It's set on an unknown human colony world, and the facility which houses Sabers preparing for its launch is utilized by the 22nd First Response Wing of the local UNSC Planetary Defense Force. Out of curiosity, I posted in a group that I am a part of a rather simple question: what do you think of Launch Site? And as I sort of predicted, the responses ranged from unpopular opinion, but I love it, especially for One Flag. It's fun in Slayer too, but One Flag is another level. To never liked it as much as the others, too large for game modes, perfect for big team battle, but SWAT is horrendous for campers. To even simply bad. Hang in there, Alonzo, I'm sure things will be okay. Joking aside, Launch Site does make people ponder on its purpose. It's set up almost unlike any other map in the Halo franchise. Not strictly speaking because it has an asymmetrical map. In fact, Halo often has asymmetrical maps, many of which are some fan favorites such as CE's Chill Out, Halo 2's Zanzibar or Turf, or even Halo 3's Ghost Town. I think what makes Launch Site, for better or for worse, really stand out can be broken down into two major sections: power weapon and team spawns, and sight lines. Those are two different sections. Power weapon and team spawns are one sec. You get it, right? Okay, moving on. I think the more integral part is the first one, so we'll start things off with sight lines. Now, what do I mean when I say sight lines? Sight lines, specifically in first-person shooters, is the, well, line of sight a player has view of at any certain point throughout the map. Typically, in what is widely considered good map design, you'd want to have a somewhat balanced approach, ensuring there's a decent bit of both areas with poor lines of sight to encourage close quarters combat and meleeing, and also, in the reverse, if the map has a sniper or battle rifle spawn, you'll want to ensure that there are at least a few spots a player could get to that would be beneficial for their specific weapon case. This dynamic helps promote players to travel across the map to strategically place themselves in positions that best benefit their current weapons. Why is this a good thing to have players moving throughout your sandbox and play space? It keeps things fresh as players weigh their options, risks, and rewards as they determine and decide which strategies are worth it or not. It all comes down to player expression and choice of freedom. If you want to snipe, then you need to get that sniper rifle spawn and then quickly locate a good vantage point in which to use said sniper. Sometimes it may require moving across the map to a decent distance for the ultimate viewpoint. But is it worth the risk of being caught out in the open with the sniper? Or worse yet, what if you need to travel through close quarters areas in order to get there? These are all components and ingredients to create a good map flow that makes each game interesting and different, reducing both incentive to camp and the amount of frustration that could potentially occur in a game. These elements can be adjusted and tweaked rather easily though, simply by where the developers choose to spawn the highly fought over power weapons and vehicles. So how does this relate to Launch Site? Well, Launch Site actually does have a good variation of the two main types of sight lines, though I would argue that there are far more long-range ones than short ones, which is not typically something you see in a medium-sized map, especially one that is asymmetrical. This encourages longer gunplay and further ranged fights where battle rifles and snipers reign supreme. So again, how does this affect Launch Site and make it a mixed bag? To understand that, we will need to talk about the second section of this video: power weapon and team spawns. Most often I find myself playing One Flag on Launch Site, where one team spawns at the north end at the launch tower itself, where they have access to various fusion coils and a close quarters weapon such as a shotgun or heat wave, along with a long range weapon, usually a sniper or sometimes even a skewer. The launch tower spawn also has the high ground and a mongoose at its disposal. The other team spawns at the south end of the map in the bunker. Here, these players have access to 2 medium-ranged weapons, usually a battle rifle or commando, their choice of a warthog or mongoose or even a ghost, and they're just a few seconds away from getting the main power weapon of the map, most often the spanker or sometimes a cinder shot. Just past that is the power item pickup, located in what is almost the exact middle of the map between the 2 team spawns. So one team essentially gets the high ground and long-range weapons, while the other team gets vehicles to try to gain that high ground, and power weapons to clear the way. Personally, I think this map design and weapon spawn layout works really well for one flag. One team has the high ground defending their position while the other team has the means to take it if they have the skill to get it. This map shines bright on this mode. But I think that's the problem. It feels almost as though this map was specifically designed and developed for this one game mode. So much so that I can't recall a single time that I've played one flag on any other map but launch site. So what if this is the case though? Does it really mean that a map created for one kind of mode can't naturally be good at housing other modes as well? Not necessarily, but I think in launch site's case, it may. Without the objective of defending or capturing that one flag and replacing it with, say, just killing as many players as possible, suddenly the map feels out of balance. Players are free to go wherever they please without being a detriment to the objective, which circles back around to the first section again, sightlines. The sightlines in launch site feel as though they were specifically catered to one flag in particular. So when you change the mode, suddenly things that worked before no longer do. This creates a situation where one team now has all the vehicles and power weapons for the most part, while the other team simply has a sniper and, if they are lucky, a well-placed fusion coil or 2. The ghost in particular can be devastating on this map if the intention is strictly to kill. With how open the sightlines can be on this map, it can be extremely difficult to take down the ghost if the player doesn't make the mistake of getting too close. Something that can be pretty easily avoided thanks to just how open this level is. Even with the sniper at hand, it's often just not enough to make up for the vast raw power the other team can have. Remember, the south spawning team also has closer access to the spanker, which means that with the open sightlines, a rocket can easily make its way over to clear out that sniper. None of this strictly matters though if you're playing one flag, as dying isn't necessarily going to mean you'll lose. Often the attacking team in one flag can win over time through attrition alone, slowly working down the defending team with the power weapons as they soften them just enough to sneak in, get the flag, and get out. This makes for an exciting match for both sides, as the defenders feel like they're just barely holding on, and the attackers feel as though they're just about to break through. That synergy, though, just simply doesn't exist when you play anything else outside of one flag on launch site. Slayer matches in specific suffer hard, though it's not much better for tactical Slayer. Sure, weapon spawns and vehicles are no longer of concern, but now one team literally spawns on the high ground with excellent vantage points, making for a harder challenge for the south spawning team. No matter how you cut it, one team or the other will always have some sort of advantage on a mode other than one flag. And ultimately, I think that's what makes this map so controversial. For people that get one flag on it, they probably really enjoy this level. But if you're queuing Slayer, you probably roll your eyes when this map pulls up. Lastly, I just want to do a quick comparison with a map that I think does what launch site intended to succeed at, but in my opinion does it way better. That map is Halo 3's High Ground. Both High Ground and launch site are asymmetric medium-sized maps where one team spawns on the high ground while the other team spawns below them in an arguably more vulnerable position. So what is the key difference between these maps? Why does High Ground work where launch site fails? I think it has to do with both the previous categories, the power weapon spawns and the sight lines. If you were to get a Slayer match on high ground, the south team would have access to a ghost and a mongoose, not too unsimilar to launch site. The south team would also have access to a rocket launcher as well, but do you know what else the south team would have access to? Both a sniper rifle and an overshield. To balance this out, the north team also has a ghost and a Spartan laser. This means that both sides have access to powerful items. This makes for a more interesting Slayer experience, as both sides have the capability of defeating one another at range. Not to mention the South team, if quick enough, can get a hold of a deployable gravity lift, allowing them to nearly instantly take the high ground at a place of their choosing, and aren't funneled into a single gravity lift that is widely and easily seen from almost any angle, like in Launch Site. Without derailing the video too hard, I think Launch Site could take a couple cues from high ground if it wants to improve its standing in other modes besides one flag. These changes can be pretty simple to implement too. I think for Slayer, if they simply spawned another ghost at the north launch tower and a sniper down by the bunker where the south team spawns, it would create a whole new dynamic and really change up the flow of the map. Also, maybe moving the rocket spawn over to where the power item usually spawns would make it a little more even and both sides could fight over it a little bit more fairly. As for a mode like Tactical Slayer, I think maybe ignoring either and at all for the initial team spawns could be beneficial. The map is wide enough that you could have both teams spawn on nearly even ground in the center of the map, within the close quarters sight lines. This could promote players to risk themselves a little bit more to reach the high ground, allowing for more confrontation and less camping. Launch Site is a unique map for sure, and I think in its current state, it is deserving of its rather controversial standing in the community. But it doesn't have to be that way. As I expressed, simply by altering spawn locations, I think Launch Site could find its way as a fan favorite over time. But what do you guys think? Also, what is your favorite asymmetrical Halo map of all time? I look forward to reading your comments, and I hope you enjoyed my sort of analysis of Launch Site. I personally really enjoy this map. Anyway, Happy New Year, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.